All right, welcome, welcome. If you're new here, I'm so glad you came to join us. I hope you find this to be a really good use of your time. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you're watching on YouTube, go to the description and grab the handout for this session so you can follow along. And if this kind of legal technology talk is helpful, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more. So today, we aren't talking about software. I'm going to tell you the story of the broom, the cape, and the fossil. Intriguing? I hope so. So let's start the story by talking about scar tissue. So think about how a law firm grows. In the beginning, you're lean, you're fast, but then something goes wrong. A deadline is missed, a client gets the wrong fee agreement, a check goes out with the wrong amount. What do? We react. We add a check or a balance or a mandatory meeting. We put a bandage on the wound. But over 10 years, those bandages don't fall off, they harden. They layer on top of each other until they become part of the firm's anatomy. Now you aren't running a firm. Now you're fighting your own history. You're trying to move forward, but you're wrapped in layers of how we've always done it. And you don't know how to get out of that. Does it feel like your firm is getting heavier even when you add more people? That's not a personnel problem. That's the weight of your history showing up as a daily burden on your team's actual work. And that history doesn't just sit in a policy manual in a drawer somewhere. It lives on your team's keyboards. It lives in the first 60 minutes of their day. So when we talk about scar tissue, we have to talk about where the friction actually meets the firm. So let me tell you about the janitor's tax. This is the broom. So most of you, especially intake coordinators, are paying a janitor's tax. This happens when your technology leaves digital dust that a human has to clean up every morning. And why does this dust exist? Usually, it's because of a ghost of a software transition from 2021 or 2010 or a Lawmatics setup that was only 80% finished. So let me tell you a story. I worked with a law firm where the managing partner was furious. And he told me Lawmatics isn't working. The dashboard is a lie. I can't trust my numbers. So I didn't look at the code first. First, I sat down with Sally, who's their intake coordinator. I watched Sally start her day. For the first hour, she didn't contact a single lead. She didn't follow up on a single agreement. She spent 60 minutes manually dragging leads from a stage A to a stage B, checking boxes and fixing naming conventions just so the partner's dashboard wouldn't look like a disaster. She was literally sweeping the floor of the software. So let's think about that. Sally's brilliant. She is awesome at what she does. She's the face of the firm to every new lead, but her brain was being used as a broom. So think about this. How much are you paying Sally per hour to be a digital janitor? How many lost clients are in that hour of silence every morning? If your technology is supposed to be a force multiplier, then why does it require a cleaning crew? The drag isn't the software, it's the fact that you've accepted cleaning up as a standard job description. If your team starts their day with cleanup instead of intake or revenue generating tasks, you've already lost the morning to your own scar tissue. When the digital dust gets too thick to sweep, or when the floor is so cracked that you can't walk on it, we usually stop trying to fix the floor. So instead, we look for someone who can fly. And now, Beth, I know this topic is right up your alley. So before I go to point two, do you have anything to say about the digital dust and being a broom?
Yeah. I do want to clarify one thing. There when you are setting up something and you've added a change and everything else, there's going to be some digital dust. And that is a very good description of what that is. But that doesn't mean that it continues forever. It should be dusty, just like any when you're building anything, there should be dust that you need to clean up every day. But that doesn't mean that it stays that way forever. And When you're running into that, that's when you need to call us. And we need to make those small adjustments and things so that dust doesn't continue to happen. Yes.
Absolutely. And you had mentioned that it doesn't stay like that forever. And I want to take it even a
Well,
step further that it shouldn't stay like that forever. And if
correct.
it
Yes.
is, then you should be able to identify that as the issue.
Exactly.
All right, so let's go to point two. So this is the paradox of the hero. This is the cape. So we talked about the broom. Now we're going to talk about the cape. And this is for attorneys and client service coordinators and intake coordinators. Being a hero is a hidden drag. We love the person who saves the day. We cheer for the paralegal who stays until 9 p.m. to manually fix an error. We give a bonus to the team member who catches a typo in a fee agreement at the last second, saving the firm thousands of dollars in a typo. But here's the hard truth. If a day needs saving, your process is broken. So let me tell you a story about this. Let's talk about Super Dave. Dave is the guy that everyone goes to. Every time a fee agreement gets stuck in Lawmatics or wherever because a client has a weird middle name or a secondary address, Dave jumps in. He manually edits the agreement, overrides the automation, and sends it out. And everyone cheers, "Thank God for Dave." But Dave's heroism is a mask because Dave is so good at fixing the problem that nobody realizes the template was built poorly 3 years ago. The scar is there, but Dave is covering it with a cape, and we're inadvertently celebrating him losing his work life balance um, of leaving at 5 p.m. with everyone else. So, if we look a little deeper, think about this. Is Dave actually helping the firm, or is he just the world's most expensive workaround? What happens to your revenue the day Dave goes on vacation? Do you have a hero in your office right now who is active or who is actually a bottleneck in disguise? Dave's heroism makes the pain tolerable, which means you never actually heal the wound. We don't want a firm full of heroes. We want a system so boringly consistent that Dave can go home at 5 p.m. and play with his kids. So, in a discovery meeting with us, we aren't looking for your best people. We're looking for where your heroes are and where they're hiding your biggest leaks. And we're not looking for that for us to have another client. We're looking for that so you aren't one step away from a disaster in your firm. Eventually, the heroes get tired. They stop jumping over the cracks. And then one day they stop showing up to the office. And when that happens, the firm doesn't fix the crack, it builds a fence around it. We call those fences rules. And over time, those rules turn into bone. Do you have any comment on this point, Beth? All right. I'll give you a wrap up at the end. So now let's move to the last point, the fossilized logic. The final drag is fossilized logic. This is when you are doing things today to satisfy a problem that hasn't existed for 5 years. It's institutional memory that has outlived its usefulness. So let's have a quick story about this one. We had a firm that had a three signature rule. Every agreement, no matter the service, required three internal signatures from three different partners. Why? Because in 2018, they had an agreement that went out, the client signed it, the attorney signed it, and it was done. The problem was that the agreement ended up giving the client half off the price of a trust because a previous template was used and not corrected. Today, they use a digital signature system with approved conditional templates that don't get modified, and it's 100% trackable. But I'm going to tell you that the three signature rule is still fossilized in their workflow, and some of their attorneys are literally chasing up the other attorneys down the hallway to get the other two signatures on the agreement. It's a fossilized rule. It's a problem that doesn't exist anymore, but it's still being followed. They're driving a Ferrari with the emergency brake pulled all the way up because they are still afraid of a hill they climbed 300 miles ago. So let's look a little deeper at this. Look at your SOPs, your standard operating procedures. How many of them were written to fix a mistake from a person who doesn't even work at your firm anymore? How much logic is built into your Lawmatics or CRM workflow that was meant for a version of your firm that was half this size, and that version of your firm doesn't even exist anymore? If you started this firm today from scratch with 2026 technology, would you ever choose to do it that way? If the answer is no, then that rule isn't a safeguard. It's a fossil. It's scar tissue that has hardened so much you've forgotten it was ever supposed to be skin. You have to be willing to burn the manual to let the firm breathe again. So on Monday morning, when you walk into the office or when you log into your computer, I don't want you to look at your to-do list. I want you to look for your scars. Look for the broom. Where is your team cleaning up data that should be automated? I want you to look for the hero with the cape. Who is saving the day instead of fixing the root cause? That will identify your leaks. And then the fossil. What rule are you following that was made for a firm that no longer exists? So that's the story of the broom, the cape, and the fossil, and how a simple scar compounded and never healed. So if you suspect your firm is covered in scar tissue, and if you feel that drag every time you try to scale or even just get through a day, let's get it fixed. You can schedule a free discovery meeting with us. We're not going to give you a generic tech plan. We're going to help you identify the history that is holding you back. We'll show you how to stop fighting your own desk and start focusing on your clients again. So let's cut through the tissue. Let's get you back to being the lean, fast firm that you are meant to be. So before I wrap up, Beth, I would love your input on this topic.
Yeah, so this is really what continuous improvement is all about. This really comes down to the root of it, and what all of that means. Because continuous improvement doesn't just necessarily mean adding new tech or adding new things or all of that, but it really is fixing the little issues that are going on day to day that are causing you time loss and being able to do that and making those minute adjustments, like that 2 millimeter shift, just that little bit. Like if and I'll tell you guys, this actually happened yesterday. That I was talking to somebody and she made the comment that after a meeting, after she fills out a form, she goes into the matter and does this, 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 and this. And I'm like, why? Like, whoa, let's go add that to your form. And it was that simple, but it's that little shift that took 2 minutes to do it and is going to save her 3 minutes after every meeting through the day. So it is really, sometimes it's just little things that you can do, but we ignore them. Like, you have a scar. I have a scar right here on my chin. I got it when I was 6 years old. I forget it's there. Like, I don't pay any attention to it because it's been there for so long. We're not even going to talk about how long, but it's been there for a long, long time. So like you don't even see it anymore. You don't even, it just becomes part of your normal. And that's really what this is about, pointing out those things and letting them, seeing the dust and seeing the scars and finding a way to stop them and get rid of them. But it's really good.
And I love what you said about her going into the matter to add additional things and do that. She was being the digital janitor. She was paying
Oh
the
yeah.
janitor tax, and you helped her and you bought her a Roomba. So that's going to
Right.
work on its own while she
That
can
is true.
continue to do other things.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. And the whole thing came about because the data wasn't getting entered because she would forget to do it and like try to go back and do it later. And it was just a mess. And the data just started devolving because of that. And so now we fixed a whole bunch of problems. We've gotten that out of her brain, so she doesn't need to think about that. Um, we've ensured the data integrity of what is in her firm. And yeah, so that nailed two birds with one stone, so to speak, and cleaned up a bunch.
Absolutely. And I want to bring up another one where it's not necessarily a scar, but when you start into this path, it becomes band-aids. And that's when you start tracking
Yeah.
your marketing.
Mhm.
You're going to start saying, how did you hear about us? But you're going to have things online and you're going to start figuring out band-aid ways to collect marketing information. And so, starting right from the beginning with proper workflows of how to capture that, whether it's through UTM codes, pixels, hidden fields on forms, Google Analytics that's coming over and bringing data into your system. Um, that's what starts the process of band-aids that turn into scars that then becomes the broom. Then you need the superhero, and then it just becomes a fossilized part of your firm. So you can avoid all of that by starting it the right way. And I bring up marketing because that is a big one I see where people are trying to route their marketing to collect the information correctly.
Right.
All right. So before
Yeah.
we wrap this up, just a quick note for anyone on YouTube. We always start the recording or stop the recording here, and then we open it up for live Q&A. That part isn't recorded, so people can ask real questions and talk through real situations. So if you want to be a part of that conversation, we do this live every Friday at noon Eastern. It's free, and the link to join is in the description.